Go on, John. Let them in. Let them in. There's over 100 now. Yeah. Never start a webinar without 100 people on it. That's what I always say. Hello, everyone. What an absolute treat to be here. Let's have slide 2, please. Slide operator. Boy, have we got an agenda for you today. It's been far too long since we did a full-scale webinar. We have been doing regular technical webinars. They're all on our YouTube channel if you want to check those out. What could be a better wet Wednesday afternoon viewing than a 4-month-old out-of-date webinar? That's what I say. No out-of-date webinars here today. Everything will be absolutely screamingly up to date, red hot, fresh out of the air fryer. And without further ado, let's go on to the next slide. I've already said it, guys. It's been too long, but we have been busy over the D-TRO coalface since we last had a full-scale webinar, I beg my pardon, in February. Can you believe it? So we have we were in Seville, would you believe, presenting about D-TRO to our colleagues from across Europe. That was fun for us. We do these things so you don't have to. We've been advancing the service, pounding through the backlog, getting it into shape. You're going to hear more about that this afternoon. And yeah, it has been a busy old time for us. As John Cooper just posted there, we have the Q&A tab and the chat tab. I think what we're saying is put your questions in the chat is the plan. Yeah, and in the traditional way, we will have a look and answer them as we go or at the end as appropriate, but we'll try and make sure every question gets answered unless there's a crazy volume. One thing to note, talking of hot topics, you may or may not know, you probably know there's been a government restructure, but you may not have clocked that 2 of the ministers from the DfT moved on. Lillian Greenwood was the Minister for Digital Traffic Orders, and she got promotion into the Whip's office. And we are just a little bit uncertain at the moment exactly who is taking over and how it's going to work. 2 ministers have left, and so far 1 has been appointed, and it looks like it may or may not stay like that. So essentially, we've been told give it a few more days and we will understand who now owns what portfolio, and it's pretty major, really, guys. Ministerial correspondence just seems to get cancelled, and people need to like resubmit it to the new minister. What do they call it? Submissions, we call it. You know, things we send upstairs all the time as civil servants to ministers. That all kind of goes on hold, you know. And the new minister might have a new take on things or do things differently. And so, yeah, do bear with us while we have this change of minister. But I want to update you on the process and what we've been up to. Essentially, I can't sit here today and give you a legal start date for digital traffic orders. I would love to do that, but we're still working on it. I have agreed some words with our policy colleagues, which I can share with you. But as soon as we've got a date, we will share it with you. We need to get the consultation response out first, and you know, it's all to do with the parliamentary timetable and that stuff. Civil servants can't preempt the parliamentary timetable, so it is all happening. There's loads of work going on, policy team in the background, but I cannot sit here and say it's going to be this date or that date. I think we can safely say, though, that the two dates mentioned in the consultation, the 1st of July and the 1st of October, neither of those are going to be hit. And also, the plan remains, and this is something we do with streetworks legislation in agreement with the industry. We're going to keep this for traffic orders as well. We'll give 12 weeks notice minimum of the start date. We just need to do 21 days, I think, essentially for legislation. But as a point of agreement, we want to do the 12 weeks that we always do for streetworks for this as well. So that's the plan. It's worth saying as well that it will become at some point a legal requirement to send start and stop notifications for a traffic authority on their own road closures. So there'll be more about that forthcoming. That won't be for at least a year, probably more, after the legislation becomes a legal requirement. But I just wanted to give people a heads up about that. We're already talking about how we could link permits in Street Manager to traffic orders and just have the start and stop notification or the current traffic management status giving an update about what the status of the road closure is. But I think you guys can understand that it's all well and good knowing that a traffic order is written out for a month or 2 months or, God forbid, even 18 months. That doesn't tell us when the road is closed. So look out for that. Now, there's a question in the chat. 12 weeks is insufficient to procure a digital provider or write a program to deliver the data to D-TRO. Indeed, it isn't, Tim, and that's why we've been doing these webinars for over a year and telling people that it's coming, and nobody should be waiting for the legal notification to advance with their plans. So, yeah, good point. I entirely agree with you. Don't sit on your hands. You should already be doing your procurement and have it in place. And, when we go into public beta, start sending orders to us. There's somebody in the lobby, guys. I thought those days were gone with this new look Teams, but hey, we don't know what will need to be provided until the regs are finalised. No, I don't think that's fair, Tim. The data model is available and in public, and we are going into public beta. There's already 15 orgs working with us. You don't need to. The legislation is just making it a legal requirement to do what's already in D-TRO. So worry more about what's in GitHub and the data model and the stuff you're going to hear during this webinar, rather than what the legislation says. It's not as if the legislation is going to add in some new trick that D-TRO doesn't already do, because we have to be compliant with that. We don't have the specifics yet. What specifics is it that you would like? You can go into the GitHub and look at the data model. You can work without a set date. We cannot make a business case. Well, that's a different point. Yeah, I do understand that. But this is happening. We do have an act of parliament that's being enacted. Wheels are in motion, but I do appreciate what you guys are saying, that you need the to make the business case. I know what the situation is with local authorities, and so as soon as we can get that to you, we will do. As soon as we can get the consultation response out, we will. Is the aim eventually to have a way for utilities to do D-TRO start-stops? Yeah, good question, Tom. I think that's fair. It would be even it would be just as easy to do it from Street Manager with the utilities. So yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. The thing that I've always worried about personally is putting the burden on to councils to start and stop TTROs that aren't streetworks. So, how are we going to start and stop things that are building sites and stuff like that? And you have weird things where they're closed from 9 till 5 or 8 till 4 or whatever, and then open the rest of the time. And are we going to be switching those on and off every day? But we'll have those conversations later in time. First things first, let's get some of these traffic orders live, and then we can add more over time. Yeah, I quite agree with you, Tom. Okay, the questions are coming in here. We put in our start end dates on our TTRO documentation and incorporate this onto Causeway Hub when populating the TTRO. Yeah, I take your point, Eleanor, but I mean, people tend to write out the traffic order for 2 weeks, and maybe the road is closed for a week during that time, and it might start on Monday, and you can write that into the order, but we want to know when the road is actually closed. That's what we're trying to get to. Yeah, good point, Tim. Right. Shouldn't we be waiting for the full ministerial approval before committing resources? No, I wouldn't say so, Richard. We want people to be using the D-TRO service. We want to get it up and running. The legislation is only to compel people who are slow moving. But what we're announcing today is that the service is available for everyone to use. Come on and start joining it. We've got a huge amount of people out there that already have software that's compliant with the D-TRO service. Why not start using it? Right. Wow, I don't know where you are. Fantastic to hear that everything runs absolutely to clockwork. Right. Questions are going to keep coming in and we'll keep on answering those. But before we get behind on the webinar, let's move on to the next section. We're going to have a little, very brief overview of the service from Gareth. Gareth, take it away. I will hand over to you.
Thanks, Paul, and hello, everyone. I just wanted to give as Paul said, just like really high level overview of the service. I'm sure most people on the webinar are aware of this and how the service has been designed and set up. But for anyone new, just a recap and a reminder. So the first thing to say, it's an API first service. And what that means is we've got basically two APIs with a central database in the middle. We've got TRAs, or local authorities typically, publishing through a publishing API to the database. And sometimes they're doing that, or typically they're doing that through a digital solution provider, their software, by using their software, or they're doing it directly themselves. And that the digital extract of the TRO that goes into our central database. Then we've got a consume API for the data consumers to retrieve that data, put that into their services and products, and use that data how they need. And that might be TRAs, other TRAs, or it might be sat nav providers, or any other, a whole host of use cases we've got for the D-TRO data. So it's an API first service. To support that, we've had the data specification that's available on our GitHub. And we've iterated that through the course of private beta, and that's been kind of one of the key purposes of private beta, to get that specification as accurate and as correct as possible with all the feedback from the community. That specification covers the API documentation, the underlying data model for TROs, for D-TRO. It's got the JSON schema, and it's got some example files as well. So that whole package is the data specification. As I say, that's available on our GitHub. And we've really done the iteration through a number of ways to get that correct. That's through GitHub. We've got an issues log there, and people have fed back through that route. We've done user research, and thanks again to anyone on this call who've participated in that. We've got a whole host of regular one-to-one sessions with people in as well. And obviously, we've meeting people at conferences who give us feedback. And it's that time of year, conference season is going to be starting up again. And at the end of the webinar, I'll run through our engagement plan over the next couple of months. Paul, that was all I was going to say as a service overview.
Thank you, Gareth. In all the excitement of those questions flooding into the chat, I missed one of the things I wanted to say in my bit, actually. The new burdens assessment is still in the process of discussion. And that's another thing that's holding up the ability to give a start date. And as soon as we know something about that new burdens assessment, so sorry, just to be clear, new burdens is the process that you go through when there's new legislation introduced and the departments speak to the Department of Housing, which manages this process for some reason, about whether to fund authorities because you're doing something new. So when we have an outcome for that, we'll let you know that as well. Thank you very much, Gareth. So moving on then, we had a great old time in private beta, and John Cooper is the man to give us his soft touch to tell us about it. John.
Hi, everyone, and thanks, Paul. Hi, I'm John. I'm the product owner for DFT on the D-TRO beta. Just like to run through some high-level findings from how private beta went. We've got very nearly 20,000. We thought we might make it by this webinar, but we didn't quite make it. So over 19,000 D-TROs have been sent into the production environment. And then you've got a summary here of who we've had on board. So we've had a number of organizations have actually been onboarded and sent in live production data. Three of those are digital solution providers linked to 22 traffic regulation authorities. We have one authority that's been in and publishing their own orders. And we've had several data consumers in who have been extracting the data, and we have seen every now and again some outputs of what they've been able to do with that. But let's dive into the numbers in a little bit more detail. The next slide, please. So this one here shows how the numbers progressed during the launch. So we went from nothing and a very slow start through a quite rapid acceleration to the end of last year and into January. And we held that level of activity more or less through until April. Then things started tailing off and we've gone through the summer. We've launched new versions, and perhaps that explains why the total numbers didn't keep on accelerating. But we were quite happy with the numbers that we've achieved in private beta. If we just see the next slide, that shows that in a slightly different way. So that shows you the overall numbers growing and then tapering off as we've got towards the end of private beta. But I think it was a pretty good effort all round. And at some points we were seeing very large numbers coming in on individual days. There may have also been quite a lot of orders that have gone in and then been actually deleted. So the total number we have ever received could be quite a lot more than the 19,000. Now just on to one final slide, and this shows the number of orders sent in against each of our schema versions. With, you see there 3.3 leading the way, closely followed by 3.4. If you've been following on GitHub, you'll know that version 3.5 is coming, and we have a roughly 6-month cadence for the release of versions at that level, and we hold the option of a minor release. You'll see that version 3.31 is barely visible. I think there was or is one entry against that version. Now, if you're thinking about version numbers and you've seen that progression, and I'm here saying that every 6 months we're releasing a new version, you might ask yourself, well, what will we do in 2 years' time when you might be on version 3.10 or 1.1 or 1.2, say? Well, we are developing a versioning system, and we're doing the early stages of that right now. And what this would mean is that although data will continue to be sent in whatever the prevailing latest available version is, we will safeguard its integrity by putting in place a system that upversions the data when it is then retrieved, maybe even years after it's been entered, to whatever the prevailing latest version is. We won't be going into that in any great detail on this webinar. It'll be one that we'll save for a future one when we've got a bit more tech working on it. But we have done some good early conceptual stuff on it, and it's going to be really helpful for when we get into a fully fledged public beta status with more TRAs participating and more data being sent in on a daily, weekly basis. So that's it for a quick run through on how we did in private beta, and it's back to Paul.
Thank you very much, John Cooper. There's a question in the chat. Have any authorities sent in permanent orders yet? The answer is yes. The majority of those 19,000 orders are temporary orders, but that's just the nature of the beast. You know, the majority of traffic orders are temps, so the amounts are probably about proportional. But yeah, I don't know how many of those 15 have sent in permanent orders, but yeah, there's certainly plenty in there. Oh, Dan, do you want to get into historic TROs already? The plan is to, if we go back to my 4-stage process, stage 1, send in your temporary and permanent orders if you're able to. Step 2, it becomes a legal requirement to send in your new temporary and permanent orders. Step 3, you like the service, you get used to that. You as an organisation happen to already have your parking historic orders digitised and ready to go. You send them in to us. Have everything ready as an organisation. You've just done a digital review of your service. You want to send those orders in to us. Fantastic. And then later in the decade, I would say, the decade is rapidly moving on, we'll make it a legal requirement to send in your historic orders. Right. Blimey, Paul, you're going on a bit strong there. Not trying to scare anyone into complying with anything. No idea when or if the legislation will materialise. The legislation is law already. You know, the Automated Vehicles Act came in. You know, it's just a matter of when the regs come on and we switch on that particular bit of the regs. It will happen. It's going to be, some point next year. It's just a matter of when exactly it falls. But yeah, not trying to scare anybody into anything. You're going to hear now about the excitement of public beta from, you've already heard him, we've only got so many people to do the talking here. It's back to Gareth Tilley.
Thanks, Paul. Well, the big news that people will be anticipating is the launch date, and effectively we're going to be moving into public beta on the 24th of September, so in a couple of weeks now. And I just wanted to do a couple of slides on what that means and what the impact for that is. So as John already ran through kind of what we've done in private beta, has iterated the service and improved the service. And moving on from that, we're now scaling up. In private beta, we had a limited cohort. Effectively, public beta will mean that the service is open to all users. So that's open to all the traffic regulation authorities in England, all the digital solution providers now, and any data consumers now can come on board too. So moving from that private beta cohort, that limited cohort, the services on the 24th of September going to be open to everyone. So there's no reason not to start publishing or consuming data from the service as of from that date. So there's a couple of just changes I just wanted to highlight. The key thing I firstly wanted to say that is the underlying service that we've been working to and working with in private beta. It remains the same. It's just been scaled up and enhanced through that iterative process to get the data specification as tight and as good as we could possibly get with everyone's help. So underlying service remains the same. You will be able to access the service and it will be available through a government website. So that's D-TRO, D-TRO.dft.gov.uk. So the service will be findable and available through there. We're going to have a self-service onboarding tool. Those who have onboarded already will know it's been a bit of a process with a kind of documentation associated with that. Our dev team has built an onboarding tool, so that will be there to support our increased user base. And then finally, what we're going to do is introduce some enhanced error reporting as well and service management too. The error reporting is very much designed to if people find anything in a TRO that they think is incorrect, that will directly channel information back to the publishers themselves. And we've designed an error reporting tool around that. Service management will just enable people to highlight any incidents or issues they've got with the service so we can manage that as a service management team. Paul, that was the big news, and that's what I wanted to highlight about public beta.
Lot of effort went into getting that sorted out, Gareth. Thank you very much. So the 24th of September is the big day for us, guys. We've been working to get into public beta for ages. We now can. So, you know, if you are sitting there with software that's already D-TRO compliant, feel free to join us in public beta. Looking forward to seeing those numbers ramp up. I've always said it, Gareth, 19,000 orders is nothing. We need to get those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket. There's a question in the chat. There's a few questions in the chat. I'm going to try and swerve a couple and see if I can get someone else to answer the other ones. So team, if we can have a look at what Tim and Jade are saying, and someone can volunteer to answer that one. But the one I want to answer is not sure if the funding question has been answered. Can you confirm if there will be zero funding made available? Fair question, Hammersmith and Fulham. So what I was trying to say earlier was that this new burdens process takes place and there's a discussion in government and it will be decided in this formal process if there needs to be funding provided. I don't quite understand it, to be honest. I don't work on the policy side. I would have thought that would have happened from several months ago and it would have all happened a bit sooner, but that's the way these things seem to work. So sorry, Hammersmith and Fulham, I can't come out and say no there won't or yes there will. That is currently to be determined, and the scale of what may or may not be provided needs to be determined as well. So again, as soon as we know that, we'll come out and say it. Right. Does somebody want to have a crack at answering the bit that Tim and Jade are talking about in terms of needing to provide the information when you make a small change to an order. Thank goodness, John Harrod has come onto camera. John, take this one away from me, please.
Thanks, Paul. You rapidly disappear. So we are looking at how records should be managed. Obviously, part of the beta process is to get a grip around that. As it stands at the moment, every time you issue a TRO or amend it or revoke it, the service requires you to send that entire version in. So if you have if you have an existing TRO, which might cover a large spectrum, and you're making some changes within that, then your software would have to pick up the entirety of that and send it in. I don't see why that's a particular problem. Most of the service providers don't indicate that to be a problem, because that's the way they organize the lower level, what we refer to as provisions, and then aggregate them into TROs. But it is something we're looking at. There's going to be some further analysis done on that, so we may look at altering that in the future. But at the moment, yes, that is the way it's done, because that's the most straightforward way to manage what could otherwise be a very complex situation.
It's probably worth mentioning also that we are setting up an advisory group, and that we will be putting this question on records management to that group to give us a sort of concentrated hub of technical expertise, treated as trusted advisors to the project. We also obviously still operate our GitHub and other channels for submitting questions, so there's no way that we want to exclude people who've got views on this. And it's worth noting that all along we've obviously been building a minimum viable product version, and saying that it's quite possible that the service can evolve as time goes on. I think we're also putting that up versioning that I mentioned in my little bit earlier to the advisory group to get their views on how best to do that part of the service. Paul?
Thanks, John. There's a question in the chat. If an authority already has a digital service provider, will they send details to D-TRO on our behalf? Essentially, Gary, yes, but I would say that the traffic authority has sovereignty, and there needs to be some sort of process where you say to them, yes, we want to do this now. But in reality, you know, we're in regular communication with all these guys. Just talk to your friendly neighborhood digital service provider, and they'll say, yeah, you know, we can switch you on, or, you know, whatever it will be. John, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, probably worth mentioning, Paul, that we're obviously in quite frequent contact with major DSPs involved on D-TRO. We have early knowledge of who they will be able to bring into the service upon the start of public beta, and we've even in the background been getting ready for that point, right down to being able to batch upload new credentials for apps to cover off all their client lists and such like. We do have an anticipation that at the start of public beta, those DSPs will be able to start sending in the D-TROs across the piece of all the client list, and we will see those rookie numbers getting pumped up, as Paul says.
Thank you, John. I am going to try and answer something that other people are best placed to answer, but I think I remember this one. So TTROs on public rights of way, no, you're not expected to have NSG numbers. The NSG, I think, is optional, and if there isn't one and you can't provide it, then you don't provide it. I don't know why I answered that, John Harrod. I should have just passed it over to you. Did I get that right?
Paul, you could read my answer in chat, which is yes. You did get that right.
Okay. Right. John Harrod Booth, what about this business about I don't fully understand it, but hopefully you do. This electric vehicles actively charging, and then someone's fair play to someone, they're quoting, I think, from the data model. Have you seen that one?
I've not seen that one. I'm trying to
Oh, okay. Have a look at that one and reply in your own time then. No worries. Right. Okay.
I can answer that one.
Oh, go on, sir.
So the answer is that if you look into version 3.5 of the spec that we've just issued, which is not live yet, I'll come on to that in a moment, we've added in some ability to record two types of conditions to do with electric vehicle charging. So one is that my vehicle is connected to a charger, and the other is it's actively charging. And so both of those exist in the latest version.
Thank you very much, John. Right. Okay. What is next on our agenda, Mr. Gareth Tilley? Don't know why you went off camera, John Harrod Booth. Over to you, sir, for what I like to call the technical update.
Okay, thank you, Paul. So I'm not going to go into great depth. We do have a series of technical webinars for those people who wish to go into more depth. So this is skimming at a more superficial level. So we have two live versions in our systems at the moment. We have 3.40 and 3.41. 3.40 came into the integration environment in March and production in April. And we did a minor update, which is the 3.41 in July and August, respectively. The reason why we've maintained both is that 3.41 is a minor update on 3.40, and in discussion with various stakeholders, they said, could you please leave both active? So we've done so. Trying to work to the regime that we said we would work to, we have released the 3.5 documentation earlier this week, sorry, last week. And the 3.5 documentation is specifically aimed to be aligned to the requirements that we can see within the draft legislation. So that documentation is now available and is due to go live in the integration environment at the end of September, and then in the production environment at the end of October. What we've done as part of that is not only changed some of the technical details, so for example, electric vehicle charging we've introduced, but also we've changed the way we present the documentation, because there were comments coming back from various people that they'd like us to modify some of the documentation. Apparently you don't like to download documents and store them on a local drive and this sort of stuff. So we've modified that, and so quite a lot of the documentation has been put into sort of web page format. But if you go to the GitHub, you still find example files, the schema, the data model, should you wish to download it. Next slide, please. The other thing to talk about, which I think has been mentioned on some webinars before, is we've been in pretty intensive discussion with Ordnance Survey, and that's around the fact that most local authorities are quite regularly using licensed OS data as the basis if they're backdropping on a solution like ParkMap or perhaps even on their own GIS systems. If you're drawing curb lines and centre lines, you quite often pick up OS data, and OS quite rightly pointed out that that's fine if you are a licensed holder for OS data or you're part of the PGSA agreement, that's not fine to be given away as open data. And so we've been through an intensive discussion with Ordnance Survey, very collaborative, with a lot of analysis involved. And so we've established an approach where the general open data feed that is available to anybody from the service has been very slightly randomized in terms of locations. And I say very slightly, so coordinates that are moved between 0.5 meter and 0.75 meter in a random fashion. It's not random in that we can reproduce how that's being done. So it always randomizes in the same way. That doesn't sound counterintuitive, and I'm not going to explain how we do that, but we can reproduce the results. And for most use cases, this is considered to be acceptable. Non-randomized data will still be made available if you are an OS license holder. So if you're a PGSA, part of the PGSA agreement, or if you're a commercial license holder, you'll still be able to access the raw data. But for those people who don't wish to buy the Ordnance Survey licenses or don't have access to PGSA, then the randomized data will be available. The examples you can see on the left-hand side are the effect of that. So it moves things around very slightly. Probably the bottom diagram is a better illustration where you've got the raw data and the randomized, but actually in reality, the difference between them is rather minor. If we do find use cases where people are demanding higher level accuracy data than that, then they can either buy a license or we can have further discussions with them. But in reality, so far, we haven't been particularly stringent about the accuracies that we're asking you to put TRO data in. And so actually, probably that would be the first hurdle they would run across. So I thought I would spend a bit of time explaining that. So the Open Data Service is marginally randomized. It doesn't change any of the other content that you've put in within the TROs, simply very slightly moving the spatial coordinates. And back to you, Paul.
Thank you, JHB. Here's a question for you guys. My understanding is that only TROs that have already been submitted to the D-TRO service need resubmitting in case of amendment. If they haven't been submitted, then new D-TROs need only include the locations that are directly affected. Is that correct? That's a question to any of you three that wish to come in and answer it. Mr. Cooper.
I think that any time an order is sent in, it has to be a complete order. If the information of the order has not previously been sent to D-TRO, that information would need to be sent to us for it to make sense. We can't just accept a partial order. John maybe can explain that better than I can, but that's my understanding of how it works. That does create a slight conundrum that we are requiring new orders only until the other date comes in. But that is just the way it works. Without the accompanying information to make the order sensible, it can't be readily received by the service.
Yeah, I take the point, John. But if you look at the comment from Jade there, I think we do need to just give absolute clarity to people on this. Maybe we need to take a little look at the FAQs doc and make sure this is covered or update it if it isn't. Because I take Jade's point that if we are changing a small thing as part of the update, then that could be a whole controlled parking zone or whatever. So, you know, that's like a big thing to ask the traffic authority to do.
Yeah, I guess that links into the other conversation we were having about the records management strategy that John's explained, and I said we'd have on the advisory group. That is an ongoing issue to look at how small amendments of larger parent orders are dealt with, and we're not saying that what we've got in the current working service is necessarily the final way it will look.
Yeah, fair dues, fair dues. I've tried to have a stab at answering or reading out most of the questions. Obviously, there was like some chat that got in there as well. If there's other questions that you would like to ask, guys, or you don't feel have been answered, feel free to get into the chat there and ask. The other thing I was going to say is, oh, there's a question in the Q&A. That's exciting. Oh, has it been answered? Oh, yes. Thank you very much, Simon Morgan, for doing the Lord's work there and providing an answer to Robin. Thank you, Simon. I imagine it can be supplied voluntarily. Yes, indeed. That would be my hope. John, Gareth, anything in the chat that's caught your eye particularly? Here's one. Will D-TRO eventually replace the need to advertise 18-month T-TRO in the press, etc.? I don't know why you call it 18-month T-TRO, Lee. It could be a one-day T-TRO. Still need to advertise it in the press. I wouldn't encourage writing 18-month T-TROs myself. Give you more control over your network by having shorter duration T-TROs, I would say. But hey, that's a party political broadcast from me. John Cooper, anything to say while I notice you're not on mute there about newspaper advertising or indeed anything else?
No, only to just say that what we're doing on the service doesn't change any of the existing TRO legislation. It's all new legislation about sending in digital extracts of orders. So we haven't yet, nobody is yet working on a wider review of TRO legislation. Not to say that might not happen eventually sometime, but it's not something that we're doing or that anybody else in DFT is doing at the moment. It could be argued that the underpinning stuff also needs modernisation, but that's not where we are at the moment. I haven't yet had a time full to go back through all the questions, but I will continue to have a read.
Well, here's one. Do you have anything you can share about the results of the consultation on the draft regs? No, not currently, Jade. Where did it get to? So it's been, the consultation response has been done. And then I think it was just a matter of looking to get it published and when that was going to happen. And that might have had a bit of a setback with the changes to minister and stuff. But as soon as that can be shared, the policy guys will do so. I think I'm going to make it my business to get the policy guys onto the next webinar. I asked too late for this one and they couldn't do it, but we will get them on the next webinar. There seems to be a lot of discussion on the service as if it's different from the draft regulations. The regulations are the legislation which has to be complied with. I don't think it's as if it's different from the draft regulations. I just think that the if you think about Street Manager, for instance, the legislation is the thing that has to be complied with, but then the service is never going to include just the things that are in the regulations. A digital service is trying to meet user needs and do different things, and really, yes, you need to be compliant with the legislation, but then it's fine to talk about things being voluntarily added or going above and beyond what's in the legislation. We'd never get anywhere if we had to spend our lives making sure that a digital service, digital products are difficult enough to do as it is, without needing to make sure that every single thing about it lines up with the legislation. You know, basically with Street Manager, it just kind of says Street Manager will be updated from time to time, and you know, changes will be made, and that kind of covers it. You know, so I wouldn't particularly be wedded to this idea that, you know, it's like a one-to-one relationship. You know, the legislation is great, that's over there, the regulations, that's a building block, and then we will grow and develop this digital service over time. Right. Team, do we have any other comments or questions we would like to make? Yeah, thank you, John Harrod. That's a good point around so far as it's relevant. Many happy hours, John Harrod Booth, and to a lesser extent me, have sat in rooms with lawyers going through these little points, making you know, tiny changes and discussing the meaning of words. As Bill Clinton once said, it depends on what the definition of is. I think my definition of this webinar is that we've just about finished. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all the questions. I've shot my bolt too early. Gareth Tilley's going to do his little bit at the end. Gareth, bake it away.
Just got in there, Paul. Just wanted to highlight our engagement program. So we've got our next technical webinar on the 17th. Invites have gone out for that. That was in the reminder email, but John Cooper and I will circulate a further reminder, no doubt, closer to the time. In terms of conferences, there's a couple of conferences coming up. There's Highways UK, and I'm sure the team and some of the team will be present at that conference. So if you do want to see us, I'll certainly be there, and I know others will too. So yeah, if you do want a meeting or do you want to speak to us, just let us know in advance. Happy to see you there. There's a traffic and parking conference on in Manchester, and we'll be presenting at that one. A lot of the focus and the link between the two with parking, we've been asked to present on the D-TRO service. So John Cooper and I will be doing that on the 5th of November on fireworks night. So that's the engagement programme. And then, as I highlighted before, we've actually got this new website being launched. So that website will be launched around the 24th. So it will be coming into play as we launch public beta. So that's the D-TRO, d-tro.dft.gov.uk. We've got a new email address. The old email still works, but we're moving to this D with the hyphen tro, so d-tro@dft.gov.uk. So you can contact us on that too. The GitHub is still the same GitHub page. That's got all the data specification information, other materials. It's also got the issues that people have been raising as well and our responses to that. The Transport Technology Forum, I'm sure everyone's aware of. That's got our YouTube channel on, and this, indeed, this very webinar will be uploaded to that shortly. And then in addition, we've got our regular announcements through newsletters as well. And we've got our mailing list. So that's the further information. I'm sure you guys know all those channels. And that was all I wanted to say on further information, Paul. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gareth. There's an idea in the chat around having two rules and processes, one for sort of people that are fully digitized, and another, you know, for others who are slightly further back. I'm a bit reluctant on that one, I have to say. You know, like, who's maintaining this list of the two tiers, and you know, is it self-reporting, and when does someone move from one tier into another? So I'd rather just get it all accurate and right and clear, and be, you know, clear on everyone with what the requirements are, to be honest. Oh, here's a question from Simon. Can we sign up as a data consumer on the new website now, or should we wait until September 24th? You could sign up as a data consumer. Well, no, I'll let Gareth answer that. Go on, before I embarrass myself. Go on, Gareth.
No, I was just going to say there's no reason to wait, and you can onboard as a data consumer whenever you want. We haven't got the new onboarding process launched yet. That will come into play in a couple of weeks. But in the meantime, you're very welcome to sign up as a data consumer. So if you want to do that, just email that very email address or email myself and I'll send you the onboarding documentation. But yeah, certainly we can onboard you as a data consumer anytime.
Yes, I guess the difference is that on the 24th September, we will have all the new onboarding processes that are linked to on the d-tro.dft.gov.uk portal, which includes links to the technical documentation as well. And it's going to be much more streamlined. Just also a quick shout for the TTF Autumn Update Conference, which was a late announcement. Didn't make it onto the slides, but that's the day after the Manchester one. So it's on the 6th of November in Birmingham. That's a regular fixture. We'll be updating on the project there, and there'll be some hopefully some good stories to tell about the launch of the public beta.
Absolutely.
Just to say on the emails, yeah, as Gareth said, D-TRO and D-TRO CSO emails will continue to work. We're debating whether or not we're just going to go possibly with the D-TRO email as the one email in future, but we will be rolling out our new customer service portal as well. That we're just waiting for final clearances on that, but that will also in itself streamline the way we do things. For instance, with our help and guidance documents will be massively enhanced when we go into that world. No longer will you need to wade through the FAQ. You'll be able to start searching and find answers to questions a lot easier.
Thank you, John Cooper. Gareth, can we make sure we get Jack Nixon that tech forum link, please, if it's the last thing we do? Well, everyone, I think the one thing I can say with certainty is that we're all now 1 hour older than we were at the start of this webinar, even if it may feel like more. Even if it may have aged us more than 1 hour physically. Take care of yourselves. Thank you so much for joining us and see you at the next D-TRO webinar.
Thank you.